Hello everyone, and welcome back to Nintendo Everything Refresh, where we keep you informed as to what is new and exciting in the world of Nintendo. I'm your host, Nick Serpa, and we are joined by the very talented group from NintendoEverything.com. We've got Luiz Estrella.
Hey everyone.
We've got Nicolas Shade.
Hello everyone.
And we have got Dennis Gagliardato.
Hello, hello.
Just as a heads up for y'all, in case Dennis drops out halfway through this podcast, we're in the middle of a massive storm right now, so that's why. We endeavor to bring you all the gaming news, regardless of what tumultuous weather may be happening outside. But
it's okay. I got a raincoat on and everything, so we're prepared. So you might hear me screaming a little bit. Well, Nick, my thoughts on this. But otherwise we should be good.
Yeah, and hey, speaking of gaming news, I mean, man, what a week. It almost seems like there should have been a Nintendo Direct this week, or maybe last week, that had some Nintendo stuff in it. But, instead of doing that, of course, Nintendo out of left field, they just decided to drop some random announcements on us this week. So let's just get right into it. The big thing that I don't think any of us really expected to see this week was Bayonetta 3. We got a release date for it. The game is coming out October 28th, I believe.
That's right.
And yeah, we got this great blowout trailer that showed off a lot of gameplay, and I am very excited about what I saw. Dennis, you're a really big Bayonetta fan, aren't you?
Yeah, very much. I mean, I've been playing, ever since when the first one came out. I remember playing that on 360, I believe. And yeah, I mean, I could not put that game down. I thought that game was brilliant. But I've always been a fan of Platinum Games, and I've always followed Hideki Kamiya's work, who created Bayonetta, Devil May Cry, Beautiful Joe, Okami. I mean, the man is such a creative mind. He's one of my favorite developers. So where he goes, I go. Yeah, no, Bayonetta's brilliant. So I have a long history with Bayonetta, and Bayonetta 2 was one of the big reasons why I bought a Wii U as well.
So Dennis, let's start with you then, since you named your cat after Bayonetta.
That's right, yeah, her name is Cereza, yeah, which is her real name. Bayonetta's real name.
That's amazing. So let's start with you. If you had to pick one thing from this trailer that really caught your eye or was particularly exciting for you, what would you have to say it is?
So it seems superficial to say this, but honestly, I thought the graphics were great. That was one of the things that caught me right away because, obviously, I mean, the Switch isn't going to compete with the likes of the Series X or the PS5 or just PC in general, right? But from what we've seen so far, even though it's still not technically pushing the boundaries of, let's say, photorealism, and it doesn't need to, but because Bayonetta is still very stylized, but the graphics right away just sort of surprised me because we've seen a lot of good-looking games on the Switch, but this, and especially when you compare this to Bayonetta 1 and 2 before it, it's a big jump. And I was initially worried with the initial reveal trailer, not the one from years ago that we got just the logo, but when we actually saw footage, because that was looking a little rough, but that was earlier in the year, around January, February probably.
Yeah,
so I didn't worry.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I didn't worry too much, but yeah, this one looks great. Oh my god, it's fluid, it's beautiful, 60 frames. I mean, it is stunning in every aspect, yeah, no, it looks fantastic. I love the new forms that Bayonetta has. I love her new look, even though it's very much like her younger look before she was Bayonetta. She looks very much like she has the same hairstyle and sort of makeup that Cereza did, the little kid. But yeah, it's hard to pick one thing if anyone who's seen the trailer, there's a lot going on. So
there's a lot going on, and I know you could probably talk about this trailer all day. But
absolutely,
Luiz, let's go to you next. You saw this big. I mean, I don't want to call it a reveal because obviously we saw the game earlier this year, but we haven't seen much of the game in a while. So what stood out to you about this newest trailer?
I think first, I agree with Dennis. I think the game is looking amazing, and I think as far as realistic proportion characters goes, I think there's no other game that looks better on Switch. They all look fantastic. And in that note, I think what I really liked from the trailer was the new character, Viola. because when I think we saw her silhouette on the last trailer, and I thought that she was going to be actually a man, but now they revealed her character, and I loved her design so much. I love her style. I love that whole vibe that she has, and she has her swords. And I just think that I would love to play as her for a hack and slash game like that. I think the sword style that she has and everything that we saw in the trailer, it just looks so good. So I think for me the biggest highlight was the new character, and I think it's like something that we've been seeing with some hack and slashes. I think it was Devil May Cry 5, which has like 3 different characters that are playable. So
That's right.
I really like that flexibility, that idea of having different characters with different play styles. So I think that's what I'm most excited to see in this new game. After loving the first and the second Bayonetta, I also I love the Platinum style of hack and slash, and I think Bayonetta is like the best one of their catalog.
Ooh, that's a bold claim there, Luiz. Yeah, I loved their last game that came on the Switch, Astral Chain. I loved, and the combat in Bayonetta 3 that we've seen so far looks exactly as fluid as you would expect, and it's one of those games that I feel like really has to be played to fully like get it. Like I don't think with these types of Platinum games, once you get your hands on them, that's really where you appreciate all the artistry that has gone into crafting how these games feel, and how they make these protagonists move about. So yeah, if with these multiple protagonists, I'm really curious. I mean, obviously we know they can do it because they've done it before, but it'll be interesting to see how they carry that through in this new game.
I'm just a little worried that we end up with maybe not as bad, but I just don't want a Devil May Cry 4 situation where, all the marketing is Dante this, Dante that, but then you play it and then it's Nero, who, at the time wasn't very well received because of how often he complained, But there's a right way to do that too, right? Where, Metal Gear Solid 2 also did this, right? Where everyone thought they were playing as Snake, then all of a sudden they're playing as Raiden all throughout Metal Gear Solid 2, right? So I just don't want, to jump into a game where you name your main character after to all of a sudden play as Viola the whole time. I'm super excited for her, and I think she looks awesome. Like Luis said, I love her design. I love her vibe. She's going to be great. Definitely getting a lot of Virgil vibes from her, but I just don't want that bait and switch because that's going to upset me. No matter how great she is, I'm here for Bayonetta at the end of the day. So yeah, now as an expansion, go for it. Give me all the Viola, you know what I mean? But I just am a little afraid of a bait and switch situation. That's all.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
I agree to that point. I hope it's like 50-50 or maybe a little more for
I'd be fine with
Bayonetta,
that.
something like that.
Yeah.
Or maybe you just have the option to choose who you want to play on
Well,
any
maybe,
individual
yeah,
chapter.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Because we've
True.
seen both of the characters kind of hang out together and clearly interact, so they're going to be together during points of the story. So it would make sense if they just give you the option to choose who you want to play as.
Yeah.
Yeah, I wonder if it's going to be kind of similar to how, this is going to maybe have to jog everyone's memory a little bit, but back when they were showing off Astral Chain, a big thing in the trailers for them was that motorcycle sequence, which you play through at the very beginning of the game. And from the trailers, you wonder, is this going to be a huge component of the game? But then it wasn't. It was really only, that one sequence.
Right.
And so, yeah, I feel like it's possible that could be a similar situation here. We won't know till the game is out, of course. But Nicolas, what about you? What was your most interesting takeaway from this latest trailer?
Well, I mean, I was really, excuse me, I was really fond of everything that we saw. I find it, like you guys have mentioned, I find it very funny how Viola is basically just a mix of Nero and Virgil in terms of design and her role in the story.
Yeah.
But I think what I was most interested in from the trailer was the story, actually, where obviously the thing is we all know that the gameplay is going to be great. It's Platinum Games, it's Bayonetta. From what we saw in the trailer, everything looks fantastic on that front. But I think the elements that they're introducing story-wise are pretty cool, to be honest. There's the whole thing with the alternate universe Bayonetta, who has that weird, different, funky suit and the scar on her eye. There's the return of Luca, Enzo, obviously Rodon. There's everything going on with Viola, who also has a demon called Cheshire, which is kind of neat in a reference, and it makes me wonder if she's like the alternate future daughter of Bayonetta and Luca. But there's just a whole lot going on that front, and I'm very interested how it's all going to kind of mesh together, because most of the main conflict from Bayonetta 1 and 2 has basically been resolved. Like everything with Inferno and Paradiso, and even Acer, which I think was the third faction, has basically, been resolved, and there's not really much to revisit there. So most of what we're going to see in Bayonetta 3 looks like it's going to be a completely different plot. And with all the multiverse stuff, it just seems like they have a lot of directions to go in.
Yeah, because back in the original reveal trailer, they showed off, was it Lottie from Astral Chain? The big, like, dog-like
Lappy,
character?
I think.
Lappy, that's right. Yeah, if I get to play as Lappy in this game, I'm going to be very confused, but also really happy. Yeah, and it would be really interesting to see, like, just how deep this multiverse thing goes. Like, because, yeah, if some people are theorizing, what if this game takes place in kind of the same universe as Astral Chain, or I don't know, but that would be could be a mess, once you start weaving in this multiverse stuff. I feel like sometimes, not always, but sometimes that is kind of used, as just a fan service measure, and doesn't always allow for the deepest storytelling. But I would love to be proven wrong in this game's case.
It's funny because this game is in development for a long time, but in the moment that it is coming out, the multiverse stuff is like super popular right now in pop culture. I get the impression that a lot of movies and stories are going that direction. So it's interesting to see that they had this idea years ago.
Yeah, I think it's just really cool to just see crossover stuff in general. It excites people from multiple camps, and for people who might associate or invest a lot of time, with one particular property, but maybe not the other. It helps sort of give that other property a little bit of exposure to a fan base or a demographic that may or may not have taken interest to it otherwise, right? So, but at the same time, like, it could just be a fun little thing, kind of like what they did with Bayonetta 1 with all her outfits. She had a Star Fox outfit, right? Samus Aran outfit. So it could just be a cool little thing like that too. Maybe we're looking too much into it, but who knows? We'll see.
Yeah, I think the main thing, everything you guys said are also things that are very interesting to me. But one of the things I'm really curious about is the setting of this game. We haven't seen, I feel like, a ton of different settings. The main one they've shown off is what looks like Tokyo. And so I'm curious as to, I guess it's related to the story, but why exactly she's there and how they're going to tie that into this whole multiverse craziness that they seem to have going on.
Yeah, the settings were actually...
Yeah, Nicolas, go on.
The settings were actually one of my main concern when they showed off the trailer. I think it was in September last year, where what they had shown just seemed very gray. And like Dennis had said, it didn't look fantastic. But I am really happy with this trailer where they've shown off a little bit more. We've seen a little bit, some brighter areas. I think we saw some points where she dipped into, I think, Inferno. I'm not sure if we saw her go into Paradiso. But just, we saw a bit more variety in the settings, which is really what I was looking for after the first trailer, which just kind of seemed very bland aesthetically.
I think the PR that Platinum gave, that Nintendo gave actually, said that should be like around the world. And in the trailer we saw Tokyo, but we also saw Manhattan, I think, right at the beginning. And there's a place that people are, if I'm not mistaken, are saying that it is in China. So I think this around the world thing and around the multiverse will be kind of the different areas. And in there, I think there's space for a lot of variety in that sense.
Yeah, I'm sure there's a lot more to this game than what was just shown off. Obviously they're going to save the most exciting locations for later on. But yeah, there seems like, there's going to be a good amount of variety in the end game, and I'm really excited to see how everything comes together. One of the things that also came out about this game that they're putting in that is new to the franchise, They picked a weird name for it. They're calling it Naive
I know what it
Angel
is.
Mode. Yeah. It's a very Platinum Games name for a very like. I don't understand. I mean, there's a lot of controversy around this. Basically, what it is it's a mode that covers up the Bayonetta a little bit more, not like substantially, but just making her a little more family friendly, for lack of a better word.
Yeah, like for those that don't know, Bayonetta, a lot of her powers, she uses her hair. So when she especially summons, a lot of that hair goes away because her outfits are all of her hair. So
Yes, it's for agility purposes, of course. I mean, you just can't fight, encumbered like that.
I'm sure that that's exactly what Hideki Kamiya had in mind.
I'm sure. There's always people on the internet who are upset that it's censorship. I don't personally agree with that sentiment. I think censorship is generally not a good thing, but this is not really that. It's giving an option to people who may want to experience this type of gameplay and are intrigued by other aspects of the game, but just don't necessarily want to see all of that for whatever reason.
I mean, I think, I said the other day also where, I think, even though it doesn't apply to people like us, I think it's good to have that option for younger audiences that are into Bayonetta or maybe wanting to get into Bayonetta. That keeps things from getting, uncomfortable in households that may or may not be more, sensitive to, visuals like this, right? So, but I mean, I rather have an option like this than being forced or having the studio be forced to censor like how PlayStation's been doing as of late, right? So, I think and more options never hurt anybody. It's always good to have that accessibility for, whatever your audience may be.
No, I agree. I think options are also great. So what I found funny is that they say that it's okay to play with your family on the room in that mode, but you are still summoning demons and killing demons, so
right.
It is still a pretty barbaric game.
Yeah, so really it's the least of your worries, really. I mean, honestly, with all the demons and stuff, no, you're right.
I wonder if they'll tone down any blood effects in the mode to like add to the PG-13-ness, but maybe it will just be like the visuals.
In the past, we saw. I think the Assassin's Creed games had some like no blood options, and I always enjoyed that because I have some problems with seeing a lot of blood. I'm not the kind of guy that enjoys that. So, those kinds of options, there's always people who it's good for them. There's always people for that.
Yeah, I mean, like Dan said, options are never bad. I mean,
exactly.
God only knows. I wish some other Switch games, Xenoblade Chronicles 2, had
I had that in
options
mind.
like this.
Yeah.
But yeah.
I had that in mind, yes.
Yeah, it is funny how, there will be such a big stink about, characters who are revealing too much skin or, suggestive or sexual content in games. But then, nowadays most people don't bat an eye when someone's playing Doom and just ripping demons to shreds and just blood everywhere.
But what if they were sexy demons?
Well,
like
that's a good point, Nicolas. Yeah. But, that's it's a good option. And I'm hey, if more people can play these games, I think that's only a good thing. One other tidbit that came out of this, it's not reveal, I keep wanting to call it that, but this big blowout trailer with a release date is we are getting a Bayonetta 3 Special Edition. And on top of that, Bayonetta 1 is getting a physical release, which was already a thing in Japan, but this didn't really happen elsewhere. So that is also really exciting.
Yeah, that's just awesome for collection purposes. Previously, the game was only available either as like an eShop download, and if you bought Bayonetta 2, you would get one as well, but it would be a code to the eShop version. So just being able to have all three physically for people that do care about physical versions is really nice. I might pick that up myself at some point.
Yeah, and it's only $30 too, which, I mean, coming from Nintendo, that's really surprising.
Yeah, it's not bad, but honestly, I think they would get a lot of sort of hate if they did make it 60. Just because, for example, well, like Nicolas was saying, if you bought a physical copy of Bayonetta 2, it also came with a digital copy of Bayonetta 1. However, if you bought one digitally, it would actually discount the other one significantly, so that way you would basically be paying $60 as a total. You could buy them individually for a cheaper price, but yeah, if you bought one, the other one would be automatically discounted. So, and it usually went down to about $30. So yeah, if the physical copy went any more than that, then that would be a little ridiculous. But but it's awesome to see.
But also, but also, totally expected from Nintendo.
True. Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. Yeah.
But yeah, that Bayonetta 1 physical standalone release is coming out on September 30th, so just about a month before Bayonetta 3 comes out. So, and these are short games too, so at least if you're only playing through them once. So if you're
the first one's not long at all.
Yeah, they're both like under 10-hour games, right?
Mm-hmm. Well, I think the second one. Well, actually, yeah. No, you're right. You can absolutely like blast through them in under 10 hours. The first one, I mean, I think the quickest I've played was probably a little under 5 hours, but the second one, I want to say my first go was maybe around 12 hours, but yeah, my second time was probably around 8, and then yeah. So.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. How long to beat, which is a wonderful resource if you're ever trying to figure out how long it will take you to beat a video game. Puts the first one at around 12 to 16 hours and the second one at around 9 to 13 hours. So there you go. Yeah. So you could feasibly get through both those games before Bayonetta 3 comes out pretty easily for most people. So yeah, we'll be talking about that game a lot more when it gets closer, and it's only a few months away. So I don't know if we're going to get too much more big news till then, but I guess you never know. There are some other games we want to talk about this week too, though. This one also could have been announced in a bigger Nintendo Direct, but Nintendo just decided to talk about it all of a sudden this week. And that game is Kirby's Dream Buffet. It is a new Kirby game. It is an eShop exclusive. Looks like it's a smaller game, so we just got Kirby in the Forgotten Land earlier this year. This doesn't seem to be that level of game. It's more of a spin-off. But it's interesting. They're billing it as a multiplayer game mostly, and people have kind of been comparing it to Fall Guys. You're kind of racing through these obstacle course stages, collecting strawberries apparently, which is just wonderful. You're trying to bump other players off the stage. Sounds very much like Fall Guys, actually.
Yeah, well, it looked like it at first too.
I think the biggest difference is that you have to eat those strawberries. So I think that the goal is not just to reach the ends, but to reach the ends and be a very fat Kirby.
Which, I mean, that's amazing.
Exactly.
I don't think you can have too fat of a Kirby, in my opinion. So
I like how aware of Kirby's cuteness, how laboratory is. They know exactly how to use his cuteness in every game.
Mm-hmm. That shot in the trailer where he's just like staring up at the giant cake.
Exactly.
Like Kirby just gets shrunk, and his immediate thought is, "Oh my God, the food's so much bigger. This is great."
Yeah, Kirby has no regard for his own health. And that's, I mean, he can clearly pack it away pretty good, so that's good. Yeah, this is pretty out of left field. I'll be honest, I was not expecting Nintendo to show off another Kirby game really at all anytime soon, but the more I think about it, I mean, especially back in the 3DS and Wii U days, there were quite a few digital-only smaller Kirby experiences. So it makes sense, HAL has been putting out a lot of these smaller Kirby games, and we've gotten a couple on the Switch, but yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think Kirby Fighters and Kirby Clash have both come to Switch. And one of the things I saw people talking about was whether this would be free-to-play or a paid title, and I think since Nintendo has confirmed that it would be paid, I'm not 100% sure though. But that would be an interesting thing as well, because I believe that Fighters was paid, whereas Clash was free-to-play with microtransactions. And I think I would much rather this just be a pay once and you're done. But it'd be interesting to see if they can adopt a free-to-play format and have that work without there being too much controversy. I don't think they would necessarily do that just because it doesn't really seem like their style, but I'm very curious what we're going to end up having in that regard.
Yeah, that's true. I guess I just assumed it was going to be a paid game, but you're right. They haven't announced the price, and they said they're going to talk about the launch date and pricing details later. So,
It's
I
weird
guess
because
you're right.
we
It could be free to play.
We are right at the end of summer, right? For you guys. And they say that the game is coming out on summer.
I think technically summer is until the end of August or until mid-September.
Oh.
But I mean, it's
Oh,
still
okay.
you're still
think so.
right.
Yeah,
We're still
somewhere
like
around
only a
there.
month away, so it is
Yeah.
odd that they would not have given a date. But
Yeah, would have been a great game to just be like, and it's out today. You know, that would have been
Yeah.
Kirby fans.
complete
very
shadow
excited,
drop,
but-
like we didn't know this existed, and suddenly we're playing it like 2 hours later.
Right,
That would have been
right.
crazy.
Yeah, no, it's cool. I wonder how differently it will play from Fall Guys. I mean, it does look like there's copy abilities in the game, so that's the main kind of Kirby spin on it. But beyond that, I wonder what else there is to it. Really, I'm sure I'm gonna play it no matter what. But
Yeah.
you know,
They'll probably also put out a demo because I believe they've done that for pretty much all of the smaller spin-off titles on Switch. So
Yeah.
assuming that'll be a good way of trying out the game if it is something that costs like $20 or something. Just try out the demo and
Yeah.
see if it's for you.
yeah, that's true. Well, yeah, we don't know exactly when this game is coming out. Sometime this summer, and we don't know how much it costs yet. But yeah, once it's out and once we know more, I'm sure at least one of us will probably be playing it. I haven't played a ton of Kirby games, but he's still got a soft spot in my heart. So I might try and pick this one up. It seems like a nice little small game to fit in between all these massive games that are coming out.
Yeah, I'm personally super excited for it. I love Kirby so much. He's just such a cute, wholesome character, and his games are usually more often than not really great. So I expect this to be pretty much in line with the consistency of quality Kirby games.
Yeah, for sure. Although just don't mention Star Allies to certain people, Dennis. 'cause
God.
some people do not like that game.
I mean, Forgotten Lands just came out, so we are on a good position.
Yeah, that's true.
Yes, we are on a
we're-
good note. Yeah, Kirby's gotten a bit of a glow up. He's being his best self, and yeah, no, that's great. Here's some more Nintendo news. This is maybe not as exciting as a new game being announced for some people, but it is exciting in a different way. So we all know Nintendo's been working on this Super Mario movie, which was originally going to come out this year, but is now coming out next year. And it seems like Nintendo may have bigger plans in terms of producing more animated content. They just announced this past week that they are acquiring a company called Dynamo Pictures, which is a Japanese company. They do all types of visual content. I guess in the past they have worked with Nintendo on some projects. They did the Pikmin animated movies that were on the 3DS, and I guess they were involved with Metroid Other M, which I remember the cutscenes from those games being really good for the time of the Wii.
Yeah, I thought they were great.
Yeah, so it seems like they're mostly an animation house, but yeah, I mean, I don't think Nintendo would be buying them and then changing their name to Nintendo Pictures if they weren't really serious about getting into this movie business.
Part of me thinks
don't-
this is sort of long overdue.
Yeah, I don't necessarily agree. Just because looking at what Dynamo Pictures has done, because I had to look into them a little bit. They've done a lot of stuff in terms of advertisements and commercials. They haven't necessarily worked on big shows as much, or like done movies by themselves. I do believe they've worked on some. Like I think they've worked on the CG for the latest Dragon Ball movie. Possibly because that movie was all CG, if I remember correctly. But they did not seem like the kind of studio that was exclusively movie-based, if that makes sense. A lot of what they've done is commercials. They've done like little spots. For Metroid Other M, they did the in-game animations. For Pikmin, they did short movies. So it's kind of hard to tell at this point exactly what Nintendo plans to do with them. movies are certainly a possibility, but it could also just be, hey, work on in-game CG cinematics, or it could be, short movies like Pikmin. It could be commercials. It's an interesting acquisition regardless, because it is, obviously they're buying them for a reason, and they did just acquire another company only a few months ago. So I don't know. It kind of just seems like they're consolidating their resources. They're bringing all the different fields that they need together. I'm not entirely sure if they have anything big planned for this, but it's interesting to see regardless, and it's fun to speculate on.
I agree with Nicolas, and something that came to my mind immediately was Sakurai saying that all these trailers for Smash reviews were like super expensive to produce, and I think Nintendo outsourced all of them. So I think in general it's just Nintendo trying to bring a company that has this know-how to them, so they can like do everything in home, in the sense of these Smash review trailers, or even trailers to review new games or something like that, or CGA for insider games and stuff like that in general. But I would be happy to see more stuff like the Pikmin small movies, like not necessarily big movies like they're doing with Illumination. I don't think this company has the potential to do something like that, but I think just because Nintendo has so many brands, so many recognizable brands, and it would be nice to see them in those shorts, in movies like that.
Yeah, no, that's true. I think the thing that is making me think and maybe hope somewhere deep down that they're working on these bigger projects is they're renaming them to Nintendo Pictures. And to me, that implies, maybe I'm just being helpful, but to me that implies something bigger than just, oh, we're going to help out on, cutscenes and video games, Like, that's a very movie studio title. It could just be an internal branding thing. And you're right, they don't have a lot of experience working on these bigger projects, but I don't know. Nintendo's been working with them for a long time, and if they really were just gonna keep working with them in their current capacity, I don't necessarily see why they would need to acquire them versus if they want them working full time on these big projects for them, to the extent where they would totally rebrand them. I don't know. I feel like there might be something bigger going on with it, but as always, we'll have to wait and see. But something else that's interesting is I guess these guys have worked on a lot of non-Nintendo games too. Mm-hmm. I saw this article from The Verge, and they've worked on all kinds of stuff. They've worked on Death Stranding a little bit. They did stuff for Persona and Nier. Yeah. Like, it's crazy how many different games they were involved in. And so I wonder how that's going to affect, like, some of these other studios that were working with them.
Yeah. I mean,
maybe that's why Nintendo wanted to buy them. I don't know.
Yeah, hopefully they'll be kept busy. I think the acquisition is supposed to go through sometime in October, so we probably won't know exactly what's going on with them until then. But it'll definitely be interesting to see, when's the first time we get to see the Nintendo Pictures companies show up in the credits for something.
I think we'll see them very often in the credits, like the Mario Club, for example, which is the debugging scene, the debugging company that Nintendo uses, and at the end of each credits you'll see. I think we'll start to see that name in those video games, because like Nick said, it seems that their main experience is with video games, like even from other companies. So that's why I'm guessing that it is more related to that. But it would be super interesting that if Nintendo used that for some, maybe they worked with Illumination and they are like, okay, I want something like that for us. I want our own studio. That would be also fantastic.
Yeah. If they were working on some type of bigger project, I doubt we'd hear anything about it until after the Mario movie comes out, and because we still haven't even seen a trailer for that, and that's supposed to be coming out early next year. So, and the other thing I'm wondering too is, like, I mean, we don't know if the Mario movie is going to be any good. It's certainly going to be interesting, but Nintendo seems to be putting a lot of effort into, they mentioned this in one of their previous meetings, but they're trying to expand more into multimedia. they said that was a big priority for them. But for them to be acquiring all these studios before their first movie in 30 years is even out, they must be pretty confident that it's either going to be good or it's going to make them a lot of money. Probably the latter for sure. Maybe the first one. All right. Well, so that was another big kind of out of left field Nintendo news bit that came up this week, and we've got one more smaller Nintendo specific thing that we want to go over, but we do have some more games to talk about after that. So don't duck out on us just yet. The other Nintendo thing that we want to discuss is related to Xenoblade. Xenoblade Chronicles 3 is right around the corner, coming out in just a few weeks. And we learned recently that there is going to be an expansion pass for this game. We know that this expansion pass is going to contain some DLC outfits. It's also going to contain a major story expansion that we don't really know anything about yet, which makes sense because the game itself is not even out yet. They did something kind of similar with Xenoblade Chronicles 2, although I'm not really familiar too much with it. I know Xenoblade Chronicles 2, it had a really big story expansion with the Torna DLC. But was the other stuff in the expansion pass? I mean, Nicolas, did you buy it? Was it worth it?
Yes, and definitely yes. Yeah, basically, it's looking very similar to Xenoblade 2 Expansion Pass, where what it's adding in is several new outfits. It's adding in several new... In this game, they're heroes. In Xenoblade 2, they were blades, which are basically just additional characters or playstyles. It's adding in new quests. So a whole slew of new quests. In Xenoblade 2, they also often had pretty unique rewards. A lot of them were things that made just kind of certain tasks in the game easier, grinding, farming for certain things, which was very appreciated. It added a whole challenge battle feature, where you just had dozens of super difficult fights that you could challenge yourself to do, and you had various rewards from that. That included additional secret characters and playstyles that they had not initially advertised. And then on top of that, you got Torn at the Golden Country, which is basically its own full-fledged, like, 20-30 hour RPG. It's honestly, for Xenoblade 2, it was a fantastic deal.
Yeah, and I know, like, we know when Xenoblade 2 came out, everyone was complaining that there was not nearly enough content in that game. So it's really good that they released all this extra content. Otherwise, I think people will just blast through that game.
Yeah. Yeah, so that's why I think a lot of fans of Xenoblade 3 aren't really having any problems with this expansion pass being announced, because there's enough good faith that Monolith has built up that anyone familiar with their past expansion pass would know that, oh yeah, this is going to be worth the money. Like, some people online are a little bit miffed that, there's this day one DLC, that you're getting these items and these outfits for free, and that they're not included in the base game, which, I mean, I sort of understand. But at the same time, my perspective is that, like, these outfits and items and whatnot aren't what you're getting the expansion pass for. Like, most likely, you're getting the expansion pass for that new story content that's coming out at the end of next year, and you're getting it for the challenge battle mode that's coming out in the next wave, and you're getting it for the new quests and the new heroes that are coming out in the next two waves. So this little costume content is not hugely affecting things.
Yeah, no, and I think that's very fair. I think personally I have kind of a hard time, not just with Nintendo, but just with this concept in general of, we're going to release a expansion pass for this game that is not even out yet. We're not really going to tell you too much about what's in this expansion pass. We're just going to give you the vaguest possible generalities. And but you can still buy it now if you want to. And it just, a lot of times these expansion passes, I don't know if we know how much this one costs yet. Was it $30?
Yeah, 30.
Yeah, 30. 30, I could maybe justify. Other games, I've seen some of them going, as high as $40 or $50 for some of these expansion passes. So I have a hard time with the concept in general, especially when, like you said, some of this stuff is coming out the same day the game releases, which begs the question, like, well, why is it just not in the main game? But yeah, it's a tricky subject.
I mean, that's a fair stance to take, honestly. I can understand that. I think I
still buy them, so I'm part of the problem, but...
Yeah, I just think that for this particular issue, I mean, like you said, it's a matter of kind of the content you're getting when you don't know what you're getting. Asking someone to pay like $30 for an expansion pass when you don't necessarily know what's coming in it is can be a bit of a risky situation. I think it's just because this is Monolith and we've seen what they've done in Xenoblade 2 that a lot of fans are concerned about it. Because assuming that it's anything like the previous expansion pass, this one will definitely be worth the money.
Yeah, I was talking with Nicolas about that, and I'm a big Xenoblade fan, as you all know, but I won't buy this expansion pass day one, just because I like the stuff that I want will come out next year. So probably on Wave 2 or Wave 3 I'll probably buy, because day one the only thing that they're giving are like outfits with alternate colors, basically the same outfits with other colors, and like some coins in-game coins and stuff like that. So nothing that I'm interested day one, just small incentives. I see why that sounds kind of bad, because the game is not even out, but honestly, every time that Nintendo did that, from what I remember, Breath of the Wild was the one that the expansion pass was announced before the game came out, and Xenoblade 2, and I'm not sure if Fire Emblem Three Houses was like that too. I'm not 100% sure on that. But in general, I just think that I never was super disappointed with a DLC for Nintendo, you know? Like, every time it feels like it's something that they actually developed after the game came out, like the tracks for Mario Kart 8 on Wii U, or the Octo expansion for Splatoon 2. In general,
Sure.
I trust them, but a lot of expansion pass in the industry with other companies was something super suspect with very weird stuff, and usually the game comes out and the game is not even good, so why would you buy an expansion pass for it? So I can understand why people are judging that the way that Nintendo is treating that.
Yeah. No, I do agree with you. I do think Nintendo is pretty good overall about giving DLC packs that do actually add substantial amount of content to the base game. And I will have to say, like, you know, they're not nearly as egregious as some other companies. I don't know if you guys are familiar with the Dead or Alive series of fighting games, but Dead or Alive 6 in particular literally has hundreds of dollars of DLC. Like even if you were to buy all the season passes, which collect everything together, I'm looking at the game right now on Steam. There are 461 pieces of DLC for this game. Yeah. And I think if you were to buy them all, it's like almost $1,000 US dollars. It's ridiculous.
And they are new characters.
There's a couple, but it's mostly costumes. It's mostly different costumes for your characters.
It's a little ridiculous. Like, I remember going on their Steam page one time and just, you know, where Steam usually has bundles where you can just buy everything. And I think it was around probably closer to $1,500 actually. So yeah, it's a lot of money for all those DLCs. Yeah, but Koei Tecmo has just a bad history of that in general, because not only does Dead or Alive suffer from that, but so does Dynasty Warriors. Like, my God, with Dynasty Warriors, if you guys ever look at the packs for that, especially Dynasty Warriors 9, there's like 4 or 5 separate season passes. First of all, stop. Just stop, okay? One season pass at most, and if you want to do something different, yearly pass. Do what Ubisoft calls it. It's a yearly pass, year pass, you know, whatever. But that's not a season pass anymore. This is getting a little much. It's a little ridiculous. Especially when people are spending $1,500+ Stop it. Just stop it. No one's going to be playing that game for that long, and especially Dynasty Warriors 9, no one liked that game. Sorry. So
I'm sure someone at Koei Tecmo liked that game. You know, because they made it.
Probably because they got paid to, maybe. But
maybe. All right. Well, yeah, I'm gonna try and withhold judgment about this expansion pass until we really see what it has to offer. But yeah, and Nicolas, if you do pick it up, I'll be curious to see if you think it's worth the money. I think I already know the answer. But,
yeah. Well, yes. I mean, like Luiz said, also, I think the important thing to take into account is that you really don't need to buy this now. If you aren't
Right.
convinced, you
Right.
can always wait until the future waves are announced and we know more about them. So
Right, just say no. Just say no to pre-ordering things you don't know what's inside them. Generally, a good rule of thumb.
Yes.
Yeah, unless you're a big Xenoblade fan. then maybe
hey, I have not pre-ordered it. Okay.
All right.
Man,
gonna
if
pre-order right
Xenoblade
after this
3
podcast,
ends
are
up
you?
being a bad game, I don't know what I would do with my life. You don't know how my expectations are high.
Yeah, like just shattered.
Right. Well, and like Nicholas, are you writing a review for this game?
I am not. I am writing a review
Oh,
for
okay.
Live Alive, so I have to get that. I'm going to try and get that done in hopefully a week, maybe 2 weeks, just so I don't have to. I can focus mostly on Xenoblade, but we'll see.
Yeah, that's right around the corner. All right. Well, that's all the big Nintendo news. But like I said, there are a few more games we want to talk about. So stick with us. The first one I want to talk about is Ark Ultimate Survivor Edition. Now, this is kind of a weird one because Ark, which is a survival game that has lots of dinosaurs in it, has been out on the Switch for a while, but it is not a good port. I played the demo for it, and it is just absolutely a mess. It is one of the few games I would say is like genuinely unpleasant to play on the Switch. It was just a total mess, and the game has had plenty of technical issues on other platforms too. A lot of people really like the game. They like a lot of the actual mechanics in the game, and it's supposed to be pretty fun to play with friends on PC. But it's known for being particularly glitchy. But there is a new kind of version of this game in the works for the Switch called the Ultimate Survivor Edition that is being developed, my understanding, by a totally different company. It's by this company called Grove Street Games, which that name might sound familiar. They actually worked on the Grand Theft Auto Definitive Edition trilogy, which was not the best received.
Oh no.
No. But I saw some gameplay for this new version, and it actually looks very solid. And I'm actually surprised at how good it is running on the Switch, to be honest with you.
I because I saw some videos of the original one. I never played it, but I saw it. It was super blurry. And
Oh, yeah.
this new video that I saw is like a huge improvement from that. It's a huge improvement, but I still think it looks a little bit blurry. I think it is at a point that is definitely playable, and that's already a huge step. But it makes me wonder if people. I mean, it has a big fan base, and it seems to be one of those games that are like evergreen experiences where you are always returning, you are always playing more and more. So maybe there's an audience for that. But yeah, it looks up to me. It looks like a usual Switch port that looks more blurry than the other versions, but totally playable.
Yep.
Yeah, it seems pretty par for the course. I mean, I do have to applaud them for going back and trying to make it right.
Oh, true.
I wonder if owners of the original game are going to get this new version as kind of a free upgrade. I would hope that's the case, but I also wouldn't be surprised if it wasn't.
Yep. I do
I
wonder
think
what it is
so,
that.
yeah.
I wonder what it is that motivated them to decide to like, hey, we're going to overhaul this. I think it's going to provide new content, correct? So maybe that was an incentive to like, hey, we need to. Maybe the new content just did not run on the old version. Maybe it just physically could not run, so they had to overhaul it to add it.
I don't know. I know it's launching with an expansion pass called Scorched Earth, but I don't think that's a new expansion pass. I think it's been out for a while, and it seems like that one's been out since 2016. And it sounds like some of the other expansions are coming later on. They said they're launching like the game's other expansions like every 2 months. So it's just kind of weird.
Nicolas.
But it's the same. Comes at the same time that they're bringing over No Man's Sky to the Switch, and that game has also been out for a long time. So I'm not. It's not unprecedented.
And No Man's Sky is looking pretty good. But Nicolas mentioned why they would do something like that, and I think at the end of the day, it's just because of the bad press that they received. So they, like, it puts the studio and the game in some way in a very bad light. So I think they're kind of trying to reverse that, to make things right, and I think it's awesome. Honestly, I wish Rockstar would do the same for the GTA trilogy on Switch, because not only on Switch, in all platforms, because I think that was such a mess, like at the level of similar to Ark on Switch, which they managed to make games from PS2 totally worse. So I would love to see more companies trying to do that when they manage to make such a big mistake. So as Nick said, I applaud them for that attitude. It definitely is a great way to try to fix that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I just did a little bit of digging, and it looks like this new version of the game is going to be free to people who own the current version. So that's great to hear. All right. Well, is anyone going to pick up this game that originally launched on the Switch in 2018?
No,
is this going to be the tipping point?
I'll be honest with you guys. I can't stand Ark. I've tried playing that game on at least 8 different occasions. Like it wasn't a one and done thing for me, because no, I'm not even joking. Like that's not a hyperbole. That I swear to you, at least 8 different times, maybe 9 or 10. I don't know, but it's I've tried so many times because it looks like a game that I can get into, and I love dinosaurs and stuff like that too, and survival and crafting. So it has all the elements that speak to me. But that game, no matter where you play it, I mean, yeah, the Switch version is horrendous, but to be fair, that game is broken and trash everywhere. Okay, I'm sorry.
Oh wow.
I am sorry. It doesn't
Dennis,
run well.
So you played this game 7 times and didn't like it, but then after the 7th time, you're like, you know what? I'm gonna give it one more time.
Yeah, because every time I'm like, you know what? Because every time there's a new update, right? And then Ark 2 is coming out soon, and I'm like, all right, well, let me at least get myself warmed up and whatever.
Get ready for Vin Diesel.
So, yeah, exactly, right? Like I'm fast, I'm furious, I'm ready to go. So I tried so many times on so many consoles too, PlayStation, Xbox One, and Series X and S. You know, I've tried it on Switch. I've tried it on PC, on laptops and desktops. I've tried it on the PS4 and 5. I can't. I am done. I am done. Even though I say that now, and I'll probably try it again. But still.
This is a toxic relationship.
And it is. And you know what else?
Sounds like we need an intervention.
Well, here's the thing, and credit where credit's due, because this isn't just a problem with Ark. PixArk is the same way. I've tried PixArk also a bunch of times. Ooh. It's the same way. The only difference, it looks nicer because it kind of goes for that more voxel style. So it's a more pleasantly, it's more pleasing to the eye. But otherwise, it doesn't change the fact that it's Ark. So either way, it's in true nature. It's got its signature brokenness to it. I don't know. I don't know. I'm good. I'm done.
All right. So, Dennis, good news. There's a review code waiting in your inbox for this game.
No way. We're sending that back. No, that's going straight to spam.
We'll keep you far away from it. But yeah, I'm curious to see how it plays out once the game is out. All right, one more game I want to talk about. This is a brand new announcement, one of those out of left field third party announcements that we love to see around here. It is a new RPG called Mato Anomalies. Mato? I don't know how you say that word. Mato Anomalies. And it is a RPG being published by Prime Matter, and it is coming out in 2023. And I don't know if you guys have seen the trailer for this game. I don't know if I've seen a setting like this in an RPG before. It's kind of like, I don't know how to describe it. It looks like a semi-futuristic European city that's kind of got these like fantasy steampunk elements going on. How would you describe it, Nicolas?
Cyberpunk, the world ends with you, maybe?
Ooh, all right. All right.
Yeah, I did see the trailer as well. Sadly, even though they discussed the combat a tiny bit, they didn't really show it too much. We mostly saw cinematics in the trailer. But just from the trailer, I really like the art style. The game itself just looks really nice.
Yeah, it's very striking. It's one of those games that I just looking at, I'm like, oh man, this is gonna look amazing on the Switch OLED.
Oh, true.
Yeah, it's so this is a here's some more details about this game. So this is a turn-based RPG. To answer your question about the combat, and there are apparently two different protagonists, and sounds like there's kind of like some light detective elements. So you're like gathering some intel and knowledge as you're exploring the city, when you're not in kind of like the combat environment. So I mean that's really interesting to me. I always love games that try to incorporate these detective elements. Sounds like there are conversation elements, so you're finding new allies and trying to gain their trust through having conversations with them. Gotta thank Persona for bringing that mechanic to as many RPGs as possible. I will never complain about that. Yeah, and they describe the world Mato as a neo-futuristic version of a bygone Oriental city. So that's really cool. It looks like a world I really want to explore.
It gave me some really strong Persona vibes in general, just as you mentioned, and not on the setting, but on the style of gameplay and all of that. I saw some of the animations that are probably from the combats, and it looks very interesting. I'm curious to see if they can actually develop a good story inside the game and all of that, because if that's the case, this will be super engaging. Is this a JRPG or it is from the West?
It is.
It is a JRPG.
yeah.
Okay.
It's a Chinese studio, I believe. It's funny. I think it's a pretty unknown studio, and even the publisher is not one I've heard of before.
Yeah, Prime Matter, the publisher, they're really new. They had a kind of a big blowout thing last year at not E3, and they announced a bunch of games that we really haven't seen too much of at that point. But yeah, this was not one of them back when that publisher was announced as being this kind of big new publisher. And yeah, the developer ArrowWiz, I'm not really familiar with a lot of their games. Looks like one of their bigger recent releases was Hermitage Strange Case Files, which is a visual novel that I know the name of, but I haven't played it.
Same.
So yeah, I'm really excited to see how this one does. It's not coming until next year. Dennis, what do you think about this game, man?
I think it looks fantastic. I'm definitely into stuff like this. What you mentioned, Hermitage, I've played that a little bit on PC, and it's great. So if it's anything similar to that, I have very high hopes for this, and not to mention just how stylized it is and how artistically driven it is. I mean, it looks wonderful. All of it speaks to me. So yeah, no, I think we're in for a treat with this one for sure.
Yeah, no, that gives me hope. I mean, we know when the studios kind of prove their storytelling chops in a different genre, and it's not always a guarantee, but yeah, that makes me more interested in this game actually, knowing that you kind of liked how their last big game played out.
Yeah. The only concern I have about this is that it is heading to all platforms. So even though the announcement trailer did look really nice, I would assume it's probably an announcement trailer, running on another platform. So, just hoping
probably
that the Switch version isn't downgraded too much visually. We'll have to see. I don't know if any other games were also on Switch, so if there's like a basis of comparison there, but, hopefully it's a good port.
All right. Well, that just about wraps up our news for this week. Thank you to everyone who has gotten so far into the episode, listening to us nerd out about video games for a while. Before we wrap up, we're going to talk about what we have been playing this past week. Dennis, let's start with you. What have you been playing this past week?
Yeah, so quite a few things, but just to kind of keep it simple, I finally got invited or accepted into the Overwatch 2 beta. So I've been playing just a whole bunch of that, and it's great. It's great. It's what you would expect. I mean, for anyone who's played Overwatch, it is basically more Overwatch. However, the beta isn't as detailed or provides as much that's going to be available in the actual retail release of Overwatch 2. Once that comes out on October 4th, I believe, later this year. So, you're not going to have those sorts of, I don't want to call it character customization, but there's definitely a lot more, you can tune each hero now.
Okay.
So to sort of play more to your liking. And so a lot of the balances are mostly there, but otherwise, yeah, you can try a couple of the new maps, the new heroes, which are fantastic. Junker Queen is phenomenal. She's probably now one of my favorite heroes, so I'm excited to see, everyone get their hands on her, because I know there's going to be some crazy meta gameplay regarding her later down the line, as well as Sojourn, the other hero that's available, who are both a tank and damage hero respectively. So yeah, it's been a really, really great time. I mean, Overwatch, I've been living and breathing Overwatch since it came out in 2016, so it's embedded in my DNA at this point. So I was happy that finally I got accepted into the beta program, and yeah, just playing a lot of that. Now again, a lot of things missing. It still feels very much like how current Overwatch feels like, but once it fully comes out on October 4th, there's going to be definitely a lot in store. Everything's going to be changing. It's going to feel refreshing and brand new. However, it'll still feel comfortable and familiar for those who are long time.
Do you like, in terms of the changes that you've seen compared to the original Overwatch, do you like what you've played so far? Do you think they're ultimately positive changes?
I think so. I was a little worried. One of the biggest things I was worried about was now we're going from a 6v6 into a 5v5, right? And that one character can make all the difference. But I appreciate the balance that's happening there, because it's now you respawn quicker because there's one less person. So everyone is integral to the success of whatever match you're playing, right? So if you lose one person, that can change everything. Versus before, if you lose one character, even if it was a tank, you'd still do okay, because you can still push back. But yeah, that missing one character can make all the difference, especially now that there's only one tank, 2 damage, and 1 healer, I believe. So yeah, the tank and the healer especially have a lot of work to do. But if the damage knows what they're doing, then hopefully you can sort of work around that, because there's sort of the tank's in the front while the healer's in the back, and then you kind of have the damage, all the DPS in the middle that are sort of taking care of basically trying to chip away the health, right? So while you're sort of helping push forward and be the team's shield effectively. So but yeah, no, it's felt pretty balanced. Junker Queen, and to put it a little bit into perspective, she definitely feels a little bit broken. I'm not gonna lie. Like, wow, like the first game I played as her, it was insane. Just I don't know, it
like
could
very
just
overpowered and
right, and it could have just been a good game on my part, but sometimes you just know, because there's a lot that she can do, because she's a tank and she acts like a tank, she feels like a tank, but she can also sort of heal her team at the same time by doing this sort of war cry. She heals herself also, so you have those healing elements with her, but also she can like speed the team up in like something similar like how, for those familiar, how Lucio does it, and yeah, she is very versatile, and for a tank, I think that can be very scary if you don't balance that properly. So I feel like they're definitely, I mean, again, October's months from now, so I have no doubt that they'll tweak it, tweak a lot to the Overwatch 2 beta before it officially releases for everyone to play. But yeah, so far so good, and I'm really loving what I'm playing. But again, it's only a snippet of what we're really going to be getting later in the year.
Right.
So but yeah.
All right. Well, glad to hear that one is so far been positive in this early phase. Nicolas, what about you? What have you been playing this last week?
Well, I've been exceedingly boring, and I've just kept playing Monster Hunter Rise Sunbreak. So I don't know that I have too many more updates on that front. I'm well into the post game, so at this point it's mostly just optimizing all of my gear, doing the remaining quests, just kind of going through some of the more nitty-gritty completion stuff. Ideally, I'd want to have all that done before the title update drops early next month, but I don't think that's going to happen.
Does it ever feel like a job, Nicolas? Going through all this, you see, going through the nitty gritty, and that just doesn't sound fun. Nitty gritty.
Well, I mean, maybe that's putting it a bit far, but the game is inherently has some degree of farming for materials and whatnot. I wouldn't say it's necessarily, unfun. I do enjoy myself playing it, which I think is what matters.
Well, that's good.
Yeah.
That is ultimately what matters. No, good. Hey, it sounds like you've gotten your money's worth with that, and really, at the end of the day, that's all you can ask for.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Luiz, what about you? What have you been jumping into this past week or so?
So I've been playing a big one. It's called Tokyo Mirage Sessions Sharp FE Encore. So I bought it last month. I imported it from China and I was waiting to arrive. It is the Chinese version, but it has English subtitles and the game is in Japanese, so it doesn't make a lot of difference, the dub. And so far I'm quite enjoying it. I always wanted to play on the Wii U, but I never got to actually buy it. And now that I'm playing on Switch, I'm kind of surprised that it is a kind of a Persona with a very low level of dialogue. Like the story is not so good, but the gameplay is, if that makes sense. So
interesting.
We have all the dungeons.
I've always heard the story. That's so interesting to hear because I've always heard people say the story was really good in Tokyo Mirage Sessions. That was a big focus of the game.
I'm still on chapter 3. The chapters are pretty big, so I think I've played like 15 hours maybe. So, but I've been enjoying. It's not like the story is bad. I wouldn't say that, but it is like okay. I think the best way I can describe it, it's like a fantasy anime, a B-level fantasy anime. Like nothing super surprising, but it is fun and it has its moments. But yeah, so far I've been enjoying. The combat is amazing. I really like the combats. Maybe I like these combats more than Persona 5, but I'm not 100% sure. But I really like all the element stuff, and I know that a lot is also from Shin Megami Tensei, but sadly I never played that one, so that's why I'm comparing more to Persona. And also because there's this whole thing of changing the hearts of people that are making bad stuff and all of that, so I found it really similar. But I'm really enjoying it, and I'm trying to finish it before Xenoblade 3. So yeah, I hope I will be able to, but if not, it's not a problem. I can pause it and come back to it later.
I was gonna say it's a really bold decision of you to start like a 50-hour RPG
I mean,
when we're like 2 weeks away from Xenoblade 3.
I bought it like a month ago, so I wasn't planning that. But now that it arrived,
you're like, well, if I don't start it now, I won't get to it for another 6 months.
Yeah.
No, it's great. That game, man, that game has been on my Switch wish list for a long time, and I think about it like pretty often because whenever like Persona comes up, I'm like, oh, I should really get around to playing this weird spin-off, formerly Wii U exclusive Atlas RPG, yeah, I'm sure I'll get around to it someday. That's what I say about every great RPG. Yeah, highly acclaimed, Dennis.
Oh, I would say so. I mean, I had the pleasure of reviewing it back when it came out on Wii U, and I loved it at the time, and I got it again on Switch, and I loved it again. And yeah, no, it's a beautiful, beautiful game. It kind of makes me laugh though because the Fire Emblem elements in that game are very minimal. So every time they marketed the game, they're like, look at this crazy crossover, Shimigami Tensei and Fire Emblem, and it was like. Barely. It was more of like a seasoning, if anything.
Yeah, exactly.
It wasn't even the main course.
Which then you're like, why bother? Why not just make it its own thing? I never really understood that.
But the game is brilliant though. If you're a fan of Persona or Shin Megami Tensei or just Atlas in general, I mean, you're gonna have a great time.
Yeah.
All right. Well, maybe I'll have to bump it up my list of priorities. As for me, I haven't been playing too much this week. I've been super busy with just life in general, but I did pop into, surprisingly, completely coincidentally, But Fall Guys, it had
Oh.
its free to play launch. It was a paid game for a while, and then it became free to play a couple weeks ago, and it finally got its Switch version that was announced what feels like a long time ago. And I was like, yeah, I'll jump in and check it out. And then, of course, the next day, the Kirby Dream Buffet game is announced, and I'm like, oh, well, this is very timely to talk about. But it's not a good port, you guys.
Oh.
It is the first sign. The first sign, when you know you're not going to have a good experience, is when it takes roughly 5 minutes, and I'm not exaggerating, to like just boot up the game. Like, I don't even know how many loading screens, and like I had to log into my Epic account to play it, and then
yeah.
I had to like the character selection screen just like was totally unresponsive, and I was like, oh my gosh, is this game gonna crash? Do I have to reboot it? So it took me like 5 minutes to get into the game, and then I was already not really thrilled at that point. And it played okay, like from a performance standpoint, like during the actual matches, but like everything else was just not great. And I was like, I was having fun with the game, but I was like, I don't think I'm gonna be playing this version of it, you know?
I was actually playing that game yesterday, I think, with my girlfriends, and yeah, I can totally relate to that. The loading times are terrible, and I was playing with my girlfriends like in the double mode, so we were basically in the same team, and she's not super experienced, so usually we were dying in the first phase or on the second phase, and it became super frustrated because every time that we die we had to go through a lot of loading screens to get into the game again. So yeah, I think the actual game runs pretty well. Of course, you can see that all the other characters are running at like 15 FPS, and that can be a little distracting. But I understand that
absolutely.
it's like the sacrifice that they had to do to run on Switch, and I think the resolution is pretty great. But I wish I want them to actually update the overall performance on loading screens and just the way that the menus work, because yes, they are super buggy, super slow, and yeah, not a very pleasant experience on that note.
Yeah, I'm not optimistic about them improving the technical performance too much, to be honest with you, because I also at one point tried Fortnite on the Switch just to see how it ran, and I mean that game came out a couple years ago, and it's also an Epic Games published game, and has very similar issues. So.
True. I remember playing Fortnite and having the same issues.
Yeah, it's a shame though, because Fall Guys is really fun. Like I'm actually in the matches. Like I was laughing, I was having a great time. My my fiance was watching, and she was getting annoyed at me. She was like, you just have to go straight, and I'm like, no. Would you like to try? Like it's harder than it looks.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right, folks. Well, that is our show for the week. Thank you so much to everyone who has been tuning in, and we really appreciate all of the support. If you like what we're doing, please spread the word, tell your friends, drop a link in whatever Discord groups you're in. We are always trying to get new people to come and listen to us, so we appreciate your support there. And you can listen to us all kinds of places nowadays. We're not just on YouTube. We are also on Spotify, Apple Music, Audible, Google Podcasts, pretty much the whole shebang. So that's really exciting. So go check us out wherever it's most convenient for you. And if you have any ideas or anything you want us to talk about in the show, please, our inbox is always open. You can find our email in the show notes, or you can drop a comment over on YouTube, and we will do our best to read them all. Someone recently has been asking for direct downloads of the podcast, and there is a more convenient way to do that now. So we do try and listen to what you guys are asking for. So just let us know. And yeah, that wraps it up. We'll be back at you next week with everything new and exciting in the world of Nintendo. See you guys later.